Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos will leave tomorrow, Sunday the 14th of February, for Germany to follow up a regular medical checkup. His Highness Saeed Haytham bin Tariq Al Saeed inaugurates Al Bashair Arabian Camel Track in the Wilaya of Adam. Search operations for 2 missing citizens continues in the Wilaya of Musana. And the Sultanate ranks 13th globally for the fastest 4G networks. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. A statement issued by the D1 of the Royal Court states that His Majesty Sultan Qaboos will be leaving the country tomorrow, Sunday the 14th of February, for Germany to follow up a regular medical checkup, which will take a limited period of time. May Allah protect His Majesty as a source of pride for the dear homeland and his loyal people. Under the auspice of His Highness Saeed Haytham bin Tariq Al Saeed, Minister of Heritage and Culture, and in the presence of His Highness Saeed Asad bin Tariq Al Saeed, representative of His Majesty the Sultan, Al Bashair Arabian Camel Track was opened in the Wilaya of Adam in the Governorate of Dakhliya. The inauguration ceremony included 5 main race rounds for camels of different categories, musical shows performed by the musical band of Royal Camel Corps, sport activities, and poetry and traditional arts. Al Bashair Racetrack also witnessed the conclusion of its activities, which started last Tuesday, by organizing 3 camel races. Around 1,400 Arabian camels from various wilayas of the Sultanate and the Gulf countries took part in these races.
الكريم أيها الأخوة المتابعون الأعزاء أينما كنتم مسار
Royal Oman Police, Royal Air Force of Oman and the Royal Navy of Oman continues its search for 2 citizens lost on Thursday in the Wilaya of Musana after going fishing. The authorities concerned found their boats this morning near Al Sawadi Beach in the Wilaya of Barka in the Governorate of South Batna. Royal Oman Police affirmed that the missing citizens have not been found yet, neither on the boat nor in the neighbouring areas. It said that helicopters of the police and Royal Air Force of Oman are sweeping the area in search of the 12 and 16-year-old citizens from the Wilaya of Musana. As part of the activities of the Royal Opera House Muscat, an art exhibition was organised. It included 25 artistic works in the fields of sculptures, drawing and photography made by some disabled people. The 2-day event aimed to highlight the creativity and great capabilities of this important segment of the society. The inauguration ceremony of the exhibition was presided over by His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Fataizi, the Minister of Transport and Communications. The Sultanate ranked 13th globally for the fastest 4-generation networks, as Omantel Company owns the first and widest 4G networks, according to a report issued by Open Signal Organization, which is a pioneering establishment concerned with the covering and performance of mobile telecommunications all over the world. The Sultanate advanced 10 places during 3 months, and its category exceeded several development countries. It acquired this position due to the performance of Omantel network, on which speed and performance of 4G network of the Sultanate were assessed in the study. Still to come in our news bulletin. Despite the sanctions imposed on the city of Kabati in the West Bank, the people continue for resistance against Israel. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The world has plunged into a new Cold War, the Russian premier said today, as East-West tensions over Syria and Ukraine dominated a gathering of world leaders in Germany. The U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry told the Munich Secretary Conference that Russia must stop targeting moderate rebels in Syria and pull its troops out of Ukraine. He said that this is the moment, this is a hinge point. Decisions made in the coming days and weeks and a few months could end the war in Syria, or it could define a very difficult set of choices for the future. He spoke shortly after the Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said the world had slid into a new period of Cold War. Russia's Prime Minister has insisted that there is no evidence his country is bombing civilians in Syria, after his French counterpart called for an end to such attacks. Government forces aided by a Russian bombing campaign are trying to encircle rebels in Syria's largest city, Aleppo, and cut off their supply route to Turkey. The French Prime Minister Manuel Valls, speaking alongside Russia's Dmitry Medvedev at a security conference in Munich, said France respects Russia's interest, but to return to the path of peace and discussion, the bombing of civilian populations must cease. The Russian Prime Minister said today that there is no evidence of our bombarding and bombing citizens, even though everyone is accusing us. That's just not true. A battalion of Iraqi soldiers arrived at an army base in Makhmur in the north of the country. Their arrival, part of the larger deployment, is in preparation for the upcoming offensive against Mosul, Iraq's second city, which has been occupied by Daesh groups since the summer of 2014. No date has been set for the Mosul offensive yet. The army base is already home to some Iraqi soldiers, but the main force in the north of the country is in Peshmerga militia of the Kurdish regional government. The newly deployed Iraqi troops have just been US trained at a facility outside Baghdad. Egypt opened its borders with Gaza today for the first time this year, according to Hamas. Hamas said that the Rafah crossing was going to stay open for 2 days. Palestinians complained that slow Egyptian procedures means that only a few hundred people will be able to pass through during that time. Egypt only opens the border intermittently. Humanitarian aid and some goods enter Gaza from the Israeli side. Yemeni pro-government forces have advanced to within 40 kilometers of Sana'a in a push towards the rebel-held capital from the northeast. Loyalist forces took the town of Nahim after overrunning the headquarters of the renegade pro-rebel 312th Brigade of the Army earlier this week. The advance puts them within striking distance of the heights overlooking Sana'a International Airport. Both sides suffered losses in the battle for the camp. The push towards Sana'a from the east comes with loyalist forces making a little headway in their efforts to advance into the central Yemen from their stronghold in the south. But in the north, they have been largely confined to Marib, east of Sana'a and Juf. South Korea and the United States are expected to begin talks next week on possible deployment of an advanced U.S. missile defense system, following North Korea's recent rocket launch as Seoul cut power to a factory park jointly run with the North. The discussions would focus on placing one terminal high-altitude area defense system with the U.S. military in South Korea. Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, North Korea's neighbor and main ally, said that Beijing expressed concerns over a possible U.S. deployment of its sophisticated missile defense system to South Korea, saying it could also be used to target China. North Korea launched a long-range rocket on February the 7th, carrying what is called a satellite, drawing renewing international condemnation just weeks after it carried out a nuclear bomb test. It said the launch was for peaceful purposes, but Seoul and Washington have said it violated United Nations Security Council resolutions because it used ballistic missile technology. With a 4-day lockdown and economic sanctions, Israel came down hard on the West Bank village of Kabatia after 3 of its sons killed an Israeli policewoman in an attack. Here is a report.
In the family home in Kabatia, in the occupied West Bank, Ahmed is still in mourning. Her 19-year-old son, Ahmed Zakarne, shot dead on the spot. The day after the attack, Israeli soldiers showed up on her doorstep to measure her house for demolition. But Ahmed remains unfazed.
Our houses are not worth more than our children. Our children are our life, so they can go ahead and demolish. They'll demolish and we'll rebuild.
Another Kabatia resident, Muhammad Nazal, had been crossing into Israel every morning for 3 years. This construction worker has 7 people living off his salary. But since February 4th, he's no longer been able to go to work.
For 4 days, the city was closed off. They lifted the siege yesterday, so today we went to work as usual. We had our papers and our official permits. Everything was in order, and we went to the Al Jalameh checkpoint. But they checked our papers and told us to turn back, because we were from Kabatia.
Israeli authorities announced on February 8th that Palestinians from Kabatia would no longer be authorized to work in the Jewish state. The Jenin Chamber of Commerce says around 1,000 people have been affected by this measure. Despite the sanctions imposed on the city, the mayor and the people of Kabatia continue to call for resistance against Israel.
There isn't one single measure of repression they haven't used against us, but nothing has changed. We'll stay on our land, we'll continue to live and to resist in our search for freedom.
Sanctions on Palestinians have Israeli society divided. Necessary for some, others say they only contribute to the increase in attacks on Israelis.
Now for the general weather forecast. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of scattered cloud on the northern governorates and low clouds and fog late at night and early morning on the governorates of Bahraini, Tahira and Wusta and coastal areas overlooking the Sea of Oman. Winds will be northwesterly light to moderate, occasionally active on most governorates of the Sultanate. Seas will be moderate to rough along the Sea of Oman and the governorate of Musandam, with a maximum wave height of 2.5 meters, while it will be slight along the rest of the Sultanate with a maximum wave height of 1 meter. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos will leave tomorrow, Sunday the 14th of February, for Germany to follow up a regular medical checkup. His Highness Saeed Haitham bin Tariq Al Saeed inaugurates Al Bashair Arabian camel track in the Wilaya of Adam. Search operations for 2 missing citizens continue. The Sultanate ranks 13th globally for the fastest 4G networks. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studio, it's good night.